Hello and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz, and during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to highvoltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at highvoltleadership. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Female Founder Friday podcast. I have a great guest this afternoon with me. This is Brooke Boltz, and she is the founder of Boltz Law. And this incredible founder has had a really remarkable journey. She has spent time in the courtroom as a probation and pretrial services officer. She has a law degree and worked for one of the largest civil litigation firms on behalf of insurance companies, and had supervised pretty significantly sized groups of attorneys before she started her own firm that now specializes in personal injury protection. So she's kind of been there, done that, and maybe even wrote the book on it. And I'm really excited, Brooke, to have you here today to tell us a bit more about that incredible journey. Fill in some blanks there for us.
Thank you. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with another boss lady. So I'm looking forward to this experience and to sharing my story.
Well, thanks. I'm so glad. Yeah, I think it's an honor too. I love these conversations. So tell us, how did you become a female founder? How did that go?
So interesting story, because I became an attorney and always had dreams of having my own firm, but I had read books and taken courses on what it would require to own your own firm, and everything said you must have a six-figure savings account before you even think about beginning. And I never had that. I never had anything remotely close to that. And so I pretty much had given up on the dream. I had worked my way up at a major firm. I became a partner. I was supervising other lawyers, and I just felt that maybe that was the path for me, because I was working my way up. I was doing good things, and I was fairly satisfied in that position. And then, kind of by surprise, another law firm that was on the opposite side of the case. I was on the defense initially for almost 10 years at the big law firm. And then a firm from the plaintiff's side of the case, who I had opposed, reached out to me and offered me the kind of offer that just I didn't think that the defense could compete with. And so I made the switch. I switched from the defense to the plaintiff's side. But when I did, something happened that was that made my new employment short-lived. One of my former clients, who was a major insurance company, filed against my new law firm 1,000 motions to disqualify.
Wow.
And those motions said that Brooke Boltz knows so much confidential information about our company that she should not be allowed to sue us, and neither should the new firm that she joined.
Wow.
So the impact that had was my new law firm had these 1,000 or so cases that used to be able to settle and make money, and now they could not, because they were tied up in these disqualification proceedings, which could last for years.
Oh, wow.
And so my new law firm was like, look, we were really excited to have you, but
Wow.
you're costing us millions of dollars to be here.
Wow.
And so I had to leave with no money, no plan, no clients, no anything.
Oh, wow.
And I was unemployable in my field of practice because I couldn't go back to the defense because that insurance company had rumor, this is just a rumor, but this is what I've heard, that insurance company had made it known to defense firms that I was off limits, not to hire me. And I couldn't go to a plaintiff's firm because the same thing would happen. They would just file motions to disqualify anywhere I went. So my choices were either to change my field of practice and kind of start over somewhere new, learn something new, or start my own business. And so overnight, Boltz Legal was born.
Wow. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, it was, I remember my husband telling me that new law firm had ruined our lives.
I bet it felt exactly like that. I bet it felt exactly like that at the time.
That's how he felt.
I'm sure he did.
For some reason, was never really scared. I was excited. Because for me, this was like a lifelong dream that I had put on the back burner that I now had no choice but to pursue. And by the way, my husband stopped working when our daughter was born 13 years ago. So I was the only income.
Yeah, I love it.
For our family of 4, and we're now a family of 5, but at the time we're a family of 4, I was the only income. And my husband hadn't worked for almost 10 years at that point. So he was incredibly concerned about what our future was going to look like. And so it was quite a burden to take on, but it just didn't feel like a burden. I was honestly excited for the opportunity to see if I could make it.
Wow. We were talking just before we hit record. This is exactly why I love doing the show, because I get to find out such cool information about a female founder who's got a really great business and what that journey has been. And we talked about that everybody's journey looks different. But I love that you shared with us. It sounds like the universe was really conspiring for you. Like there was a plan and there was a moment and there was a choice and you could embrace it. And it sounds like you just really wrapped your arms around it and ran with it. And I love that.
Yeah, I'm a faith-based person. So in retrospect, I feel like God had his hand in my destiny all along. And had these specific steps not occurred, I would never have had the courage to step out on my own because I was the sole income for my family. And I just couldn't put them at risk in that way.
100%.
So I don't think I ever would have stepped out to start my own business aside from these specific events happening to where I just didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah. I love it. I love it a lot, Brooke, because my own story is not dissimilar. I left my corporate job because of a really terrible boss. I worked for a very toxic leader. And I'm like you, I would probably still be in that organization 6 years later. I would never have left. It wasn't that I had a terrible job. I actually had a very successful career, very similar to you. And sometimes it is that push that causes you to move in the direction that, no, you're going to try something that maybe, was always a dream. Maybe it was a little niggle in the back of your mind or a passing fancy, if you will. And something transpires, and call it what you will, but like something transpires that put you in the position where that is the path forward. And it just becomes abundantly clear that that's what you need to do now.
Yes. 100%.
I love it.
I had peace the whole time. I I mean, I won't say I was never stressed at any point.
Right.
There's always stressful moments.
Yes. Yes.
In general, I felt excited for the challenge.
I love it. Well, and I want to go back to like right at the beginning, you talked about, the books, the gurus, the advisors that say you got to have the big 6-figure bank account. You shouldn't leave until you have all these things going on. And I think as women, we place a lot of importance on that kind of information. We get into the shoulds. We start shoulding all over the place, right? Especially when you're the main breadwinner. I mean, that's a big responsibility, Brooke. But I think we get caught up in some of the shoulds. I also hear from women that, well, if I had the right degree, or if I had the right designation, or if I had the education thing, we get caught up in a little bit. Or the plan, I got to have the plan, my plan, it's not going to plan. Well, maybe next year. Like we rest heavily on some of those pieces when in fact, we just need to take the calculated risk. Right?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say there is wisdom in having savings.
100%. Like I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend going out on a limb doing what I did to people because it worked out well for me, but it very easily could not have worked out well for me. So there's wisdom there, but I will say too that sometimes when your back's against the wall and you have to succeed, you will push through and you will. And sometimes just taking that leap is what you need to actually
100%
be successful. Yeah. I also tell people, because I'm a huge advocate for female entrepreneurs, is to start it as a side job sometimes. Yeah. Do it on your off hours, just to get started. And then work your way up to where you can transition to be full-time.
Yeah. No, you know what? And there's absolutely wisdom in that. What I do want to say is, because you inspired me to think something as you were talking, if you're not quite ready, and you're right, you and I were in situations where we were kind of left with few options or maybe none. But just pausing to think about what would happen if I lost my job? What would happen if I just jumped? Like just the thinking about the possibility might open up some doors, might open up some perspectives. So I love that you put that out there. And the side hustle is, I think, is a really smart move. I have a good friend and colleague who she's gone back to a 0.8. So she only works 4 days a week. And so that's reducing her salary just by a little bit, but it's manageable. And she's spending Fridays, and that's where she's building her experiment, which is her business. She's so excited about it. It's not causing huge financial risk to the family. They can absorb that. But it also gives her some space and time. And she's motivated. She's motivated to make Fridays count, which I thought was a brilliant move. Now, not everybody has that flexibility, but it's an idea. Maybe just dedicate Sunday afternoon to that, right? And that's all. Maybe it's a couple hours. It doesn't need to be a whole day even.
It's just getting started, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
If it's Fridays, if it's, like you said, Sunday afternoons, whatever it is, as long as you are consistently doing it and not putting it off week after week after week, as long as you dedicate to what time you're going to do and then you're consistent with it, then you will see fruit and it will grow.
Yeah. You know what? That is such a beautiful point. Like, put your heart into it. Give it, show up for what you're trying to build.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Well, and thank you for sharing your story. I mean, the back against the wall moment, man, there's nothing makes you motivated like just having to get in and get your hands dirty, Brooke.
100%. I mean, I'm thankful that happened to me. Like I said, I don't think I ever would have had the courage, but the fact that it happened has put me in a position now that I never could have achieved as an employee. Never.
Yeah. No, this is beautiful.
4 years and would never have been able to be where I am now. Yeah,
sometimes you actually do need the push. Mm-hmm. Right? I love that. Okay, so Brooke has taken my leadership style quiz, and we're going to talk next about what her style is and how that impacts the way she leads now in her own business, but also in her life because she's a mom, she's an aunt, like right. We wear so many hats, Brooke, in our world. If you want to know what your leadership style is, and you can check out the quiz. There's a link in the show notes. You can also go to the website, highvoltageleadership.ca. Right at the top, there's an orange button that says, take the quiz. Hit the button. It only takes a few minutes to do it. The quiz is fun. You're going to learn something about your leadership style. And I have 3 really great tips to help you be a more impactful leader that go along with that. So you can do that right now. You can compare to what Brooke's style is. So tell us, what's your leadership style?
So this was tough for me because I feel like I have evolved through a number of different styles.
Yeah.
I think that for most of my career as an attorney, I would have considered myself in the coaching style.
Okay.
Because I was having a lot of one-on-one training with different attorneys and staff.
Yeah.
But now my business has grown to the point where I just couldn't do as much one-on-one coaching anymore. And I have staff who've been with me now for a number of years who know their roles. And so I think I'm more in a delegating position currently, where most of the tasks that come in have a person who knows how to handle that. And I'm just like guiding and directing, do this, here's this email, just kind of the director, so to speak, than the person actually physically doing most of the work.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, thank you for sharing that with us. And as we talked about, this is based on a situational leadership model. And so there are 4 basic styles. And we have to be at moments in time very directive. I want this done. I want it done by this date, and I want it done this way. There's other moments where we can just be a more supportive, right? We're more in that cheerleader function. We're helping other people grow and learn. We have to flex that delegation muscle when we're building a business. And when we start to build team, we need to get the experts we've hired to do the work we hired them to do. I see a lot of business owners that can't get their hands off it. It's just silly. You hired your marketing manager because they're an expert at marketing. Stop touching it. Let them do their thing, right? And then provide the coaching, right? Be the one that's giving the guidance and the feedback and the encouragement, asking great questions to get them thinking. So I love that you talk about how you have had each one of those things be present for you as a leader, depending on what the business needed, right?
Yeah. I think the supporting one is the toughest one for me because I'm in my profession specifically, it's a fast-paced, high-stress environment.
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time being how are you today? How are you doing? And the supportive role, that is not my strong leadership style. But I very much appreciate the value of it, and I kind of am trying to force myself to go into that role when necessary, because people need to be appreciated. They need to be supported. And even though it's not my natural style, I definitely appreciate that it is important.
Thank you. I really appreciate that share, because actually it takes vulnerability to say, as a business owner, hey, there's some stuff I'm not so great at, right? Like that's not what we like to talk. It's uncomfortable. So I really appreciate that you're saying, yeah, there's a style here that's probably the one I'm not the best at. And that maybe I don't feel like for some, it's like I don't have enough skill. I don't, right? Like, and I appreciate that you recognize that that's your learning edge. And that, the team does need to see you as a supporter of what they are doing. They need, to have you affirm that they're doing the right stuff in the right way, right? We all need that, But also I can imagine that you are someone who is really good at challenging others to step up and to grow and to find the space where they need work to do. And I think that's part of being a supportive leader too, is challenging people.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that I've done, I am just blessed with an amazing staff
That's
right
awesome.
now. There is no weak link, honestly. Everyone
Amazing.
just pulls their weight and does their job with excellence. So,
Wow.
they just don't need a ton of like day to day guidance and support. So where I'm at now is just making sure everything gets to the right place and also appreciating them. I started doing on their birthdays, I send them a lengthy personalized message, just telling them all the reasons that I appreciate what they do and why I value them, so that I'm sure to do it at least once a year. And then I try to do it other times, but at least I know for sure I'm doing it on their birthdays. And we do a big end of the year celebration, and we do a mid-year celebration, and we do employee of the quarter, and we do other things. So I try to implement certain processes, because I know that's my weak link or weak style, to try to force myself to be sure I'm doing at least certain things to show my appreciation, because I very much do appreciate them.
Yeah. You know what? That it sounds like you're actually doing a whole bunch of really great stuff. I think you might be selling yourself a little bit short, because that does sound like a great recognition program, and that it does offer. I mean, they wouldn't stay with you if they didn't feel supported and valued and recognized, right? And it sounds like you got a pretty cohesive group.
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome. Brooke, that's amazing. You're doing it. That's so great. I really love that. And thank you. Thank you for so bravely sort of stepping up and saying, this is the one where I need a little bit more work. Cause, that's, that's not always easy to share. I'm going to keep you on the hot seat though, cause I'm going to ask you about, where have you made mistakes or missteps? Like where have you had some messy stuff? And what have you learned, Brooke, from those moments where it's not gone so well?
Sure. It's hard to find just one.
I get that response often.
Yeah, we're always learning from mistakes. Some are big, some are small. But one mistake I made was choosing an accountant who was in a networking group of mine, who was very dynamic and charismatic. And I thought that he presented himself as if he really knew his stuff. And then he did my taxes completely wrong.
Oh, no.
And thankfully, it only took me the 1 year of taxes for me to learn of it and get a new accountant to fix things. But it ended up costing me about $150,000
oh my
to get things made right.
Oh my goodness.
And it was probably my most costly mistake I've made, is just choosing. That was one of the things that I'll say when you start your business. That was one thing that held me back, is I don't know accounting. I don't
Me too.
know bookkeeping.
Yeah, 100%.
And I always thought, if I'm going to start my own business, I got to know those things. Well, you don't. You just have to hire someone who does. And so I had an accountant for a few years who was doing a great job, but I met this guy from my networking group, and he's just telling me, oh, you're overpaying in all these ways. I can save you all this money, all this stuff. So I bought into that, and I switched over to him, and then it took me a year to realize that he was really doing things wrong, and it was just a very costly mistake. And in retrospect, I now know that all accountants are not the same.
No.
Some don't know business accounting in the way that others do. Some are mostly personal. It's different. So I now know kind of the things to look for and ask for, and I have a great accountant now, and we got everything fixed and squared away. But it was a really costly mistake for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And costly in terms of the dollars, that's expensive. But also, I don't know if this is true for you, because I'm the same way. That's not the way my brain works. For me, it is that I can't fix it and I'm a fixer. So that comes with a lot of emotional stuff and even some shame that I don't know and that I can't do it. That's really difficult. Like that's something hard for me when I encounter that. I don't know if that was the same for you, Brooke.
So meaning you can't do the accounting stuff? You have shame about that, or you can't fix the problem once it's been made?
Yeah, I think that's more for me what it was, because I'm so accustomed to being able to dig in and just figure it out. There's not much in my life I haven't been able to solve. That's a space where I don't have the understanding to solve my corporate bookkeeping and income tax. Like I just don't. Right?
Same.
Yeah.
If someone were to show me my income tax returns, if I were to look at them and try to tell whether they're done wrong, I have no idea.
No idea.
No idea. And I have friends who aren't even business owners, or maybe business owners to some extent, and they just fill out, they do their own taxes, and I'm like,
yeah.
Props to you, because
yes.
I don't know the first thing. But I mean, I have been able to come to terms with the fact that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And it was really freeing for me to learn that I could hire a bookkeeper who could keep track of every expense and every, everything that's coming in as well. And that she could, and they have software programs now that help organize, and then you have the bookkeeper, and then you have the accountant. So you have kind of this team of people who are making sure everything's done correctly. And I've been able to just kind of be free in knowing that it's being handled well. They're reporting to me, so I know what the financials are each month, but that I don't have to learn it to still have a successful business.
Yeah. So I really think there's two really great lessons there. And the first one is, you don't have to know everything. You shouldn't. The truth is, when we run our businesses, we can't possibly know everything. We do need people that are experts to help us. And the second lesson is you have to vet those people pretty carefully, right? Because some of them talk a good game. I mean, certainly, Brooke, I encounter people all the time that come to me and they're like, well, I had this business coach and they talked about all this stuff and they told me, my business was going to transform and it was going to be 7 figures. And I really got nothing out of their $25,000 program, right? They talk a good game. You really need to be smart about vetting your people so that you know who you're partnering with in whatever way that is. Whether you're hiring a team member, you need to do your recruitment right. It's the same way if you're hiring a vendor or you're hiring a business partner. You got to ask the right questions. You got to be smart, and don't be afraid to ask them. I think that's the other part. We feel hesitant sometimes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or we just make assumptions that they know what they're doing because they have the education or they have the experience or they have the whatever. Or they're telling us something that we want to hear. I mean, he was saying things that he was going to save me all this money in taxes. And so that was really appealing to me.
Of course.
So, I mean, in retrospect, if I don't know accounting, that's okay. But I do need to know enough to ask the right questions.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Beautifully said. And I'll add to that, trust your gut. Because I think oftentimes we get a gut feeling and, our spidey senses, if you will, start to tingle. And we ignore that because, well, they're in our networking group, so they must be good. Or my friend recommended them, so they must be okay. Trust but verify, right? Which I think sometimes we override that gut feeling that we can have because we think we should. And that doesn't serve us, is the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brooke, thank you so much. This has been like a really lovely conversation today. You've brought up some really incredible learnings for us here, and shared your journey really boldly, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful to hear some of your story and our commonalities. And I've been inspired as well by everything that you've shared today.
Oh, I'm so glad. I love it when we have like a great conversation that we just record and share as a podcast. I mean, that's essentially what it is. Yeah. I think that's awesome. Thanks, Brooke. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.